Arizona, you've done it again. For the second time in 2 weeks, Republicans in Arizona's state legislature have rejected an attempt to repeal a near-total abortion ban from 1864.
It's like people, Willie, are running into a burning house, and they're saying, hey, we got an exit. You can run out the back door and not be engulfed in flames. And come with us.
You can save all these women.
No, we're fine.
Nah.
We're fine. We're just going to keep them in the house.
Let them burn.
Let it burn down. We're totally cool. No, but you can go out the back door. The second time now that Democrats have tried to save Republicans from their own worst 1864 instincts. And what do, Willie? They go, nope, we're good. We want to stick with the 1864 law.
Yeah, I mean, even if you hold the reprehensible view that someone who is raped must deliver the baby because you said so, do it for the politics. How about that? Do it for cynical political reasons that most people in your state think this is appalling, and yet you're standing by it. In fact, only 2 Republicans joined all of the Democrats in the House chamber in Arizona on the vote to repeal the Civil War-era ban. House Republicans later voted to adjourn until next week. They did this last week as well, leaving a path for repeal of this bill unclear. Democrats in the state House blasted their Republican colleagues.
The message for today is clear. Arizona Republicans voted not once but twice to uphold the draconian 1864 abortion ban that includes absolutely no exceptions for rape and no exceptions for incest. Our voices may not have been heard today, but let us be clear, we will be heard in November.
So, Jen, the Republicans in Arizona keep running back this playbook. They did it last week where they didn't want to take a vote on it. Yeah. So they're just going to dismiss themselves, adjourn for a week, and do what? I don't know, because they came back after a week this time and did the same thing all over again. Again, only 2 Republicans in the Arizona House voted to repeal a law that would force a woman who is raped or is a victim of incest to deliver the baby.
Yeah, and if Democrats were being political, they could have voted against it too, right? They could have said, "Hey, Republicans made this mess. Let them, let them deal with it," or said, "Let's just pass something on the state ballot initiative and not give them a lifeline." But I have, two takeaways from this. One is just how destructive Donald Trump's presidency has been, right? Just how destructive this has been for women. And when Republicans are in charge, they will take the most extreme position when it comes to, women's rights on the state level. And, Trump, he's trying to say that he said Arizona will overturn this. Well, they didn't, right? You leave it to the states. We've left it to the states. This is what's happened. He may be trying to moderate his position, but he's already done the most extreme thing because he took away the fundamental rights that women have.
And brags about it whenever he gets a chance.
About it. He said it was incredible. He said it was amazing. He said people were happy. One of the state representatives that was part of this debate yesterday, when a Republican talked about how it is, pregnancies don't have to be picture perfect. Meaning, suggesting that it's okay if pregnancies come about by rape or incest. They don't need to be picture perfect in order for a woman to need to have that child.
My God,
the hypocrisy of that. Of course, they say that generally, if it comes into their own home, if it happens to their own home, if their 10-year-old daughter were raped by an illegal immigrant, they'd be the first to say, "Okay, we're going to take care of that." They would be the first. So the hypocrisy is just staggering. And, Charlie Sykes, Jen's right. Donald Trump has been just absolutely terrible and destructive for the rights of women, for the rights of rape victims, for the rights of incest victims. And you move it to politics, so destructive. And we've said this before because we're really kind people and we're trying to help Republicans. We're trying to help them find their way back to where they can actually win an election once in a while. They just won't listen. They just keep losing. And you live in a state where this is, again, I think it's one of the great examples. We talk about Kansas, we talk about Kentucky for good reason. But I keep going back to that Wisconsin Supreme Court election that should have been a slugfest. And instead it was a wipeout. Why? Because they were clinging to a 150-year-old abortion ban. And it cost them the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. They don't care.
Yeah. Well, it did, and you've seen this in one state after another. Look at the politics here are absolutely fascinating. You have Donald Trump, who last week thought he was going to neutralize this issue, kind of throws the pro-life movement under the bus, even though he's responsible for Roe versus Wade being overturned. Kari Lake flip-flops on the issue, and as you point out, in Arizona they have a law on the books that probably has the support of less than 10% of the electorate. They have an easy way out, and they've chosen not to do it. And so you see this dynamic here, where at the very moment that Republicans are saying, "Hey, can we moderate our position on this? Is there some sort of an off ramp?" The Arizona Republican Party is basically saying, "No, we're completely comfortable with this," even though it's probably going to cost them the control of the legislature, may cost them the U.S. Senate seat, and probably is going to tip Arizona over in the presidential election. But this is one of the, again, part of what makes this fascinating is kind of the trick box that Donald Trump has put Republicans in, where he says, okay, I am the pro-life president. We have overturned Roe versus Wade, but it's completely now up to the states' rights, except that look what the states are doing. So while he's trying to sound moderate, he owns every one of these extreme draconian laws, and Republicans are not backing off. But that was an amazing scene yesterday in Arizona.
Unbelievable.
I just don't understand why the women of Arizona are going to have to go through the process of showing politicians what these abortion bans will mean to their lives. I mean, you mentioned rape victims, incest victims, people with fetal abnormalities, and that's a lot of people. But women who just want regular health care, who might need a DNC, who might need an abortion-like procedure, won't get them. It's going to have an incredible impact on women and families across the state of Arizona if this ban stays in effect, as extreme as it is.
By the way, we're still waiting to see. I mean, we're so concerned because Clarence Thomas, of course, in overturning Roe v. Wade, wrote in a concurring opinion that we have to look at not only things like same-sex marriage, also have to look at the right to contraception.
Right.
Right? And then you have IVF in Alabama, the Senate, and in Washington, the U.S. Senate, Republicans are blocking an attempt to make IVF protected. So, again, this is impacting women's health care. And for women who consider themselves to be pro-life, who miscarry. And yeah, it's really terrible.
We have another about face from a Trump ally turned critic. Harsh critic, very harsh. Really? Turned ally again, despite previously warning that a second Trump term would be, quote, chaos.
Chaos.
And let me just say this correctly, a horror show.
You're not saying this.
No, I'm not.
Who's saying this?
Bill Barr.
Bill Barr, that's right. Boy,
chaos.
He said it'd be a
and
nightmare.
A horror show. A nightmare.
So yeah, I'm sure he's going to be campaigning for President Biden to try to stop this from happening.
To try and avoid a horror show.
A horror show. Who wants chaos and a horror show in the White House?
Former Attorney General Bill Barr now says he plans to vote for Donald Trump in November.
What? Wait, but
do these guys know that?
I don't understand.
Anyhow, in a Fox News interview yesterday, Barr was asked about this year's general election choices. Here's what he had to say.
Given two bad choices, I think it's my duty to pick the person I think would do the least harm to the country. And in my mind, that's I will vote the Republican ticket. I will support the Republican ticket. I think the real danger to the country, the real danger to democracy, as I say, is the progressive agenda. And while Trump, and I said Trump may be playing Russian roulette, but continuation of the Biden administration is national suicide, in my opinion.
No, that's just such a lie, and he knows it's a lie. And this is Charlie. We're going to play some clips in a second, but I just have to stop. We've got to stop and call out the lies when these people know that they're lying. Barr is playing, I guess, for a Fox News audience because he wants to keep giving speech. I don't know why he's doing it. He doesn't believe a word he just said there because he knows how chaotic Donald Trump is. He knows, as he said, that him being in the White House again would be a horror show. He also knows, listen, Bill Barr, you and I, we all agree on, like, the progressive agenda. We're not supporters of it. We also know that Joe Biden has spent his presidency feeling pressure from progressives because they say he's too moderate. This guy from Delaware, who again is not some left-wing wacko, and Bill Barr knows that, but he would rather have chaos and a horror show, he says, than that guy's going to vote for. Listen, I've been through this before with people that talk that way on TV. And afterwards, I ask them who they vote for. I voted for it. You know, he's going to vote for Joe Biden because he knows that the national suicide doesn't come from Joe Biden. He may not like all his policies, but it comes because Donald Trump has said, you know, he's going to terminate the Constitution. He's going to be a dictator from day one. He's going to use SEAL Team 6 to execute his political opponents if he wants to, and nobody can do anything about it. I can go down the line. Barr knows this guy can't be president again.
No, he knows it, and this is a choice. I mean, this is one of those the WTF moments where you have, Donald Trump waging this campaign to undermine the rule of law. Bill Barr knows all of this, and he's decided it's a binary choice because in his world, in order to stay relevant and viable, he has to put party over country. I mean, literally, when he uses the phrase Russian roulette, when he uses the term Russian roulette, he knows the danger he poses. He doesn't have to do this. Look, what is extraordinary is the contrast between what Bill Barr is saying and what the former Secretary of Defense, Mike Esper, is saying. Vice President Mike Pence is saying, no, I'm not going to endorse him. There are exit ramps. You are not required to look at Donald Trump and say, okay, because I don't like student loan forgiveness, I'm going to put a man who is clearly unhinged, who clearly, tried to overthrow the government, called for terminating the Constitution. In fact, we could spend the next 10 minutes just walking through all of the things. Somebody who has been found liable for rape, put them back in the Oval Office. But I do think it is interesting, the contrast between Bill Barr and much of the rest of the cabinet. And we need to remind ourselves that never before in American history have so many people who work so closely with the president taken the position that, don't do this again. We've seen him. He is unfit for office. You do not want him back in the Oval Office. The fact that Bill Barr reminds us that he is a political hack is of course interesting. But also realize what he and people like, Governor Sununu are going to have to defend. They're basically going to have to say, and this is radical. I mean, we ought to continue to be surprised by this. Up until like 5 minutes ago, nobody in America would say that a convicted felon should be elected president of the United States. Now they are all saying it, up and down the ticket. They have to defend what Peter Weiner calls the kaleidoscopic corruption of Donald Trump. And this is not just Chris Sununu. It's not just Bill Barr. Up and down the ticket, they're going to have to explain that, we don't care about this man's character. We don't care about how deranged he is. We don't care about his crimes or what he intends to do as president. And the fact that Bill Barr says that it's Russian roulette for the country to put Donald Trump back in the presidency, and he's okay with that. What a remarkable moment.
What a remarkable moment, and you're right. They own it. He owns it. Chris Sununu owns it. A judge said, Trump is a rapist. Said he's going to terminate the Constitution on day one. Said he's going to be a dictator on day one. Of course, January the 6th, continuing to praise people that beat the hell out of cops and were ultimately responsible for the death of 4 police officers, according to their families. I mean, they own all of this and so much more, Mika.
Barr is just the latest in a long line of Republicans who found the courage to stand up to Donald Trump, only to then come crawling back again. Take a look.
We're tired of the Donald Trump drama. We want real Republican drama. Donald Trump's not a Republican. We want real Republican drama. If he's off the teleprompter, he can barely keep a cogent thought.
You support him for president even if he's convicted in classified documents. You support him for president even though you believe he contributed to an insurrection. You support him for president even though you believe he's lying about the last election. You support him for president even if he's convicted in the Manhattan case. I just want to say the answer to that is yes, correct?
Yeah, me and 51% of America.
He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party.
I'm for Donald Trump because I know what I'm going to get. We need somebody that on day one can get this country back on track. Please help President Trump. If you can afford $5 or $10, if you can't afford $1, fine. Just pray. If you got any money to give it.
There is no way we are going to allow a con artist to take over the conservative movement, and Donald Trump is a con artist.
You said it would be an honor to be offered a spot on his ticket. Really?
Yeah, I think anyone who's offered the opportunity to serve this country as vice president should be honored. I think the country and the world was a better place when he was president, and I would love to see him return to the White House.
I think really there's a sophomore quality that is entertaining about Mr. Trump. But I am worried. I'm very concerned about having him in charge of the nuclear weapons, because I think his response, his visceral response to attack people on their appearance, short, tall, fat, ugly. My goodness, that happened in junior high. Are we not way above that? Would we not all be worried to have someone like that in charge of the nuclear arsenal?
But I'm proud of the job Donald Trump has done as president. I don't always agree with him, but our occasional policy differences are far outweighed by our significant agreements. But more important than simple agreement is accomplishment. President Trump gets things done.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding.
Can he count on your support?
Yes.
That's an endorsement.
I will support the president. I will support President Trump.
Would you be willing to serve in a Trump cabinet?
In the right position. Look, if I'm the best person for the job, yes.
I don't want to claim this guy. Donald Trump, if we're going to be honest, is a progressive. He supports eminent domain. He's supported tax increases before. He's donated $300,000 to Democratic candidates. So the fact that the Republican Party is now having to claim him is both unfortunate and, to me, inauthentic.
I want my daughter to grow up in President Donald J. Trump's America.
So let's get to the drama on Capitol Hill. There was lots yesterday. A shouting match broke out during a House Oversight Committee hearing yesterday when Chairman James Comer and Ranking Member Jamie Raskin got into an argument about the Republican-led effort to impeach President Biden. Take a look.
What business were the Bidens in? Well, what business did Joe Biden's family own? What business were they in? Did they have hotels? Did they have a social media company? Did they have golf courses? Did they have casinos? Did they have office buildings?
Mr. Chairman,
what business? Did they have an energy
Mr. Chairman, we've spent tens of millions of dollars pursuing Joe Biden, and you have not identified a single crime.
You are lying.
Really?
That's a lie. We have not spent $10 million.
Hey, how much have you spent?
We haven't spent hardly anything.
Oh, it's been for free. Okay. All right. Well, in any event, you know what? Then we get what we paid for it, because you got nothing. You got nothing on Joe Biden.
No. You've not named a single question. No, what did the Bidens do? What business were they in? Why did they get millions and millions of dollars?
No, I would like to ask you a question.
No, you start. What did the Bidens do?
I don't know
what business were they in. We'll let the record show that Mr. Raskins could not answer the question.
First of all,
Biden do to receive the money?
Let me start with this. My last name is Raskin, okay? We've sat next to each other for more than a year. You don't have to add the S. Number two, I would like my time restored. And number three, you have not identified a single crime. Well, what is the crime that you want to impeach Joe Biden for and keep this nonsense going? Why? What is the crime? Tell America right now.
You're about to find out.
What is the crime?
You're about to find out.
Name it.
Chair
we inhabit a propaganda
from Arizona.
Thank you.
You know, it gets so bad. It gets so bad. Comer, when he couldn't answer the question, name the crime. You can't ask crime. It got so bad, and if we turned the mic up, you would have heard Arnold the Pig, who was Comer's. Legal counsel.
I should have known.
Said, screw you guys, I'm going home. And he just left. It was so embarrassing. Really.
I mean,
first of all, it's such a stupid question. What do the Bidens do? What do the Bidens do? What do the Biden... listen. They're talking about... What are they talking about? A couple $1 million here, right? They've never talked about the $2 billion that Jared got from the Saudis. Never. Never talked about that before. He's never been in investment before. He got $2 billion from the Saudis. And listen, it's not illegal. Okay, so it's not illegal. He did it. And that's fine. What Hunter Biden did, we've seen, is not illegal. They can't find the crime. And his whole, you're going to learn in the future,
that's
is crazy. But again, the fact that they keep drumming this up, they keep making fools of themselves, even Fox News and other right-wing pro-Trump outlets are saying, stop, you're making a fool of yourself, doesn't stop him from doing it. And again, $2 trillion for the Trump family, $3 million divided like I don't know how many ways. That Biden didn't even get like the $3 million versus $2 billion. I mean, it's crazy that they're still dragging this out, and Comer's still okay with making a fool of himself because he can't name a single crime. It's just like Mayorkas: no crime, high crime, no misdemeanor, no impeachment. It was all just political garbage. And that's the same thing here. Political garbage, because they got nothing. And every time they try to confront Hunter Biden, he makes a fool of them.
Yeah, and Comer and his committee are in so deep now, it's like they can't humiliate themselves by conceding that they have nothing, which is the case. And in fact, he's been saying for months and months and months, no fire yet, but an awful lot of smoke, which is a different version of what he just said yesterday, which is you're going to find out soon what they did. And Chris Matthews, there's this conflation by using the term the Bidens, or the Biden crime family, as they call it, to bring in the President of the United States for whatever Hunter Biden may have done. Remember, star witnesses in this, we can remind our viewers, have all, to a man, been exposed as frauds. This $5 million bribe that we heard so much about, turned out the guy admitted he was lying about that. One of their other star witnesses previously is now a fugitive on the run. You can go down the list. There's nothing here, and James Comer admits as much.
You know, this is all tied in with culture and lying. You know, I went out to Western Pennsylvania this week. I went out to Fulton County, the most Republican county in the state. It's 85% Republican in the last couple elections. And in Adams County, which is pretty much as close as that. The downtowns are open. There's nobody on the streets anymore because they're all at Walmart or somewhere, Costco or somewhere at one of the dollar stores. The downtown idea of having a gift shop, for example, there's always a gift shop somewhere. Well, there aren't anymore. That's all closed. Nobody's on the streets anymore. And the ones that are filled with hostility right now about the Democratic Party and Biden. There's a story I went to in Fulton County, which is politically incorrect, and all it is, a little store packed with anti-Biden stuff. All it is, all this stuff about Brandon, all the old cliches and nonsense from the right. And the reason is there's no newspapers for sale. There's no way to check your facts. If you hear something on Fox or hear it through the grapevine from the Trump crowd, how are you going to check it? How do you, when this guy says the Bidens, well, who's he talking about? Well, it sounds like he's talking about the president. Well, he isn't. He isn't talking about the president, but he wants you to think it sounds like the president. And so he says over and over again, like an idiot. He kept saying the Bidens, because he didn't have any more background. He didn't have any more information. He just had those phrases. Jamie is one of the smartest guys ever in Congress, and he's taken them on. And the guy fell back on the fact he didn't have anything on Joe Biden. After all these months, all the millions of dollars spent, nothing on Joe Biden. He must be the cleanest politician in history. I've never seen a guy that's been, frisked like these guys have been frisking Biden. They don't have anything on the guy. They've checked his pockets. They've gone everywhere. They haven't got anything. And this guy is talking about the Bidens. That's, Willie, you're right. It's just a simple use of dishonest language. That's all it is, dishonest language. There aren't the Bidens. Hunter has his problems. And we know he's facing the courts over it, like his father's directing the courts. That's another one. Biden is directing all the prosecution like of his son. Give me a break. It's not doing this.
One lie after another lie after another lie after another lie. And when you
no newspapers to check with. You can't check it anywhere.
That's such a great point.
And by the way, so many people don't want to check. They could go on the Google machine at home, and they could know the truth in 5 minutes on any of these lies that they spread But I found personally with my own friends, they, give them the lie that makes them comfortable. They'll take that over the truth any day of the week. Chris Matthews, thanks so much for being with us.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Speaking right now, the senator's daughter, human rights activist Kerry Kennedy. Kerry, thanks so much for being with us. So greatly appreciate it, and so greatly appreciate the work that you do year in and year out. I understand that you're going to be making an endorsement later today in Philadelphia. Tell me about it.
Well, first of all, Joe, thank you so much for showing that clip and for your years and years and years of support of everything that we do, and your such kind and heartfelt warmth towards my father and my family. We also appreciate it. And you too, Mika, thank you. We're here in Philadelphia with my siblings and representing my first cousins, all of whom, with the exception of two, all who are legally able, are supporting Joe Biden for re-election. And we're doing that because we feel that the stakes are so high. You just showed that clip of Daddy in which he said, I cannot stand aside. And we cannot stand aside when we're up against a man who says he wants to be a dictator on day one, who says he's going to change the Constitution so he can go after his enemies, who's cozied up to dictators from Putin to Xi Jinping and Kim Il-sung. We need to stop this man. We need to stop Trump. And we need to elect Joe Biden, who has always stood with the middle class, who has brought us over 14 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, and who cares about the middle class and working class in America.
Kerry, as somebody who never knew your father, but learned about him and read about him. I mean, somebody that knows Bobby Jr. I've always liked Bobby Jr. I've always liked him. But it is so jarring to me as an outsider to see somebody carrying your father's name who is, again, a hero of mine, a hero of millions. But to see him running the campaign he's running and having Donald Trump's biggest supporters support him, too, in an election that's a zero-sum game. It's about democracy. It's about diversity. It's about equality. It's about America moving towards being that more perfect union that you fight for every day. I have to ask, what does it do to you to see his campaign out there and the rest of your family?
I think you put your finger right on it, Joe. This is a campaign about, and the stakes are so high, it is about democracy. It is about freedom. It is about the people of America, not only our country, but all around the world. And that's why it's so important for every single person to come out and vote. Use your franchise. If everybody votes, Biden wins. But right now, this is going to be a very, very close election. We can't have people voting for third parties, no matter who they are. In every family, we have, Americans have diverse views. You have to love your family members. You don't have to like them. I love Bobby, and I like Bobby, but this campaign is not about Bobby. This campaign is about Trump versus Biden. And what we need to do today is focus on Biden winning. We all have to vote. Get your friends to vote. Bring your communities together and vote for Joe Biden. A vote for anyone else is a vote for Trump.
It's such an important message to hear that if you want to defeat Trump, you need to vote for Biden, and that's the only alternative. And to hear it from your family, I have to say, I'm too huge admirer of your father's. Continue to find him so inspiring about what can be accomplished in politics. And I've been in politics a long time. This is the most involved your family has gotten in a presidential campaign since your father and uncle ran. And wondering, obviously, there's a concern about the impact that your brother could have on independence. I know you talk about that in your speech, but are there other things in the Biden presidency that really resonates with your family that you see maybe an opening to accomplish the kinds of things that your father set out to do if Biden has a second term?
Well, I think Biden's leadership is so important. One of the things that's so important to me is that he cares. He cares so deeply about the people who he comes into contact with, about working class people in our country. There's so much at stake here. President Trump has said he's going to cut Medicare for people who are dependent on that for their health care. He's going to take away Social Security, which people have spent their lives building up so that they have security going into their elderly years. He's going to take away those student loans, which our youth needs in order to build a better life and education for themselves and for their families. And we don't want to go back to that chaos of a Trump presidency. And we certainly don't want to, as the richest and most powerful country on earth, be in a position where we could have a dictatorship, where this guy is saying that he'll be a dictator on day one, that he is going to change the Constitution to go after his enemies, to harm the press, the fourth estate, which keeps our democracy so strong. And that's what's at stake here. President Biden cares about us. He marched with the UAW. He cares about unions. He cares about working class people, gig workers, mothers, fathers. He cares about making sure that LGBTQ community is protected, that you can love who you love. And President Trump is proud for overturning Roe v. Wade. He can't have that. I'm a woman. I've got 3 daughters. We need control over our health care and our lives. And President Trump is against it. President Biden has fought his whole life for stopping violence against women.
So before we let you go, I just want you to briefly, if you could, just let people know that may not have been exposed to what you do every single day. And the site talks about how you teach change, how you shape history, how you expose injustice through the RFK Human Rights Award. Can you tell people about that and about the upcoming award ceremony in May?
You're so kind, Joe. So just so I don't get into trouble, I'm endorsing Biden as nothing to do with my job.
Right.
That's independent from Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights. But yes, I'm the president of Robert Kennedy Human Rights, named, of course, after my father. And we work all around the world to protect basic rights, and to make the world a more just and peaceful place in the vision of Senator Robert Kennedy.
All right, Kerry Kennedy, thank you very much. We'll be watching today. Thanks for coming on the show this morning. We appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
And we just learned that the judge has dismissed one of the 7 jurors seated on Tuesday after she expressed concerns about her ability to be fair and impartial. That means 6 more jurors and 6 alternates must now be chosen. With the court off yesterday, Trump went on a social media tirade about jury selection, seemingly misunderstanding the rules for dismissing or striking potential candidates. Trump writing, quote, "I thought strikes were supposed to be unlimited when we were picking our jury. I was then told we only had 10, not nearly enough when we were purposely given the second worst venue in the country." Under New York law, each side does have an unlimited number of strikes for cause. But the judge presiding over the case, Juan Merchan, can decide whether or not that cause is worthy of a strike. And because Trump is charged with a Class E felony, which is a lower-level felony, he and prosecutors are entitled to 10 peremptory challenges, each for potential jurors they can dismiss.
Reverend Al, you've known him for a long time. Talk about what Donald Trump's going through right now. You see it on his face in the courtroom. You know him. We've known him. What's he going through?
I think he has gone through a combination of humiliation and fear. I mean, he's humiliated because he's never been in a position where someone else was totally in charge of his movements and his mouth. And I think he's afraid because he's now sitting in a courtroom with the reality that he could be found guilty in one of over 30 felonies, which not only could face or not face jail time, but makes him a felon. And as he moves on with the rest of his life, how does he do that? How does he continue to deal with financial institutions and other things as a convicted felon? I think reality has set in even for Donald Trump.
A just-released poll of younger Americans shows President Biden leading Donald Trump among registered likely voters. The Harvard Youth Poll shows Biden ahead by 8 points with Americans under 30. Among likely voters, Biden's lead expands to 19 points. The poll also finds broad support for a permanent ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. Economic concerns remain top of mind for younger voters, and confidence in public institutions continues to decline. Joining us now, John Della Volpe, Director of Polling at the Institute of Politics at Harvard University. John, it's good to have you back on the show. Just pull back on the macro, if you could tell us who was polled. What were you overall looking for?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me again, Mika. We talked to 2,010 young Americans between the ages of 18 and 29. It was a probability-based sample, including an equal chance of all young Americans, regardless of where they live in the 50 states, to be incorporated into this survey. We've been doing this for 24 years. It's the 47th edition of the survey.
All right, so I'm just looking at the top line here. The first poll that we're going to look at is Biden versus Trump among young voters. How do the candidates fare?
Yeah, Mika, if I just take one small step back, the thing about this survey, the thing about those numbers is from the beginning to this end of the survey, we saw massive seismic mood swings, I'd say. We saw several indications that younger people, as we know, they're angry, they're stressed. They think the country, in large part, is headed in the wrong direction. They're concerned about the situation in Israel. They're concerned about the economy, cost of living, inflation. But you know what? At the end of the day, you can see that in those numbers. They're voting for Joe Biden. And right now, it's not close. There's been a myth, I think, over the last several weeks, last several months in polling that Donald Trump is making significant inroads here. I'm not sure I'm seeing that. He's pretty consistent at this 37% level right now, whether it's among all voters, registered or likely.
And then, you know, that looks good for Biden. But then these next couple of poll questions and answers, they show maybe potentially some problems for the sitting president. Young voters overwhelmingly support a ceasefire in Gaza. With the ongoing problem in Israel with the Israel-Gaza war, is that risky for the president?
Well, listen, anytime there's what younger people have said from the very beginning of this conflict, Mika, is they want peace. So you can see overwhelming support for a permanent ceasefire. It's 5-1. Every single demographic group, including younger Republicans, support a permanent ceasefire. To me, another important thread of this series of questions, and by the way, I think the reason these questions remain so relevant today is they're not. I didn't write a lot of these questions. These are the questions that younger people are asking of other younger people, or undergraduate students. And what we found was that younger people, yes, they clearly want peace. They clearly want this to end, but they also see the humanity and they have sympathy for both the Palestinian people as well as the Israeli people. They don't necessarily feel the same way about those governments and leaders. There's a big disconnect, but I think the message is they want to stop, and they have sympathy for both people. both sets of people.
So, John, let's look ahead to the next poll, which is kind of reflective of broader polling on the right track, wrong track. Nearly 60% of young Americans believe the country is off on the wrong track. And only 9% say things generally are headed in the right direction, with 32% saying they are unsure. What all goes into those numbers?
I think, Willie, that's what happens after 20 years, 15 years of chaos in this country. From these young people were born in the aftermath of 9/11, through the recession, through school shootings, opioids, climate, white nationalism, the death of George Floyd, continued chaos. They're angry. They're concerned. I don't blame them. They don't feel like their parents, their politicians, their parties really get them and understand. But again, it's not a direct correlation between that and the sitting president. If it were, Biden would be in a much he would be in a significant hole right now. But instead, among likely voters, he's winning by, I think, 19 points.
So let's look at specific issues that concern young voters. Top of the list, just like broadly for Americans, inflation, healthcare, housing, gun violence, jobs. Really, 3 of those top 5 fall under the economy. So that is obviously top of mind. It's very expensive right now for a lot of people to live in this country, especially for young people just starting out.
Yes, and I think that is one of the lessons I've really taken away, Willie, from a lot of the focus groups and the town halls. My students and I spent a weekend, 3 days in Michigan recently, and hearing kind of the stress, not just about the day-to-day cost of living, but the concern that they may never afford a home, the concern that they do what they're told to do, they go to college, and they're still concerned about having debt for decades later. So this is a real concern. The housing concerns. We talked a year ago in this poll on this show where we talked about a 40% or so of young people are concerned that one day they could be without a home, could be homeless. So these are real economic concerns. I think the economy is certainly doing better for people of my age and of older generations. But our younger people, day to day, I think it's impacting them in ways in which we may not fully understand or appreciate from the lens of politics.
John, there's sort of a bonkers gender gap in here. I think that Biden leads Trump among young men by 6 points, and his lead by young women is 33 points. I'm not surprised at how young women feel about Trump versus Biden. But what do you think is going on? You know, what should we take away, if there's any more insight you have about the relatively low number for young men and the divide?
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, that's one of the other lessons from this poll. Right? There's 2 sizes. There's small and extra large. The gender gap on the female side is extra large. President Biden has held that coalition of younger women by 33, 35 points, same as it was. But there's clear kind of a drop of support among younger men of color, younger men who are white, urban, suburban, et cetera. And I think what we need to do, Jen, is appreciate that these are mostly first-time voters. The first time that Trump came onto the public sphere, they were 11, 12, 13 years old. By the time they were in high school, we had COVID, and they were locked in their rooms, missing important life events. I think they largely blame that on Democrats. I don't think the economy has been kind to them recently. And while they are not supportive of Biden at this point, I think it's going to be critical for Democrats to reach this constituency, listen and understand where their pain and their angst and their concerns are coming from.
And then finally, John, how young people look and their attitudes toward political engagement. Tell us what you found.
I think this is really good news, Mika. I was on the show, last semester when we released this, where I was concerned about the number of young people interested in turning out to vote. The thing that makes me most confident about turnout are these 3 questions here about attitudes. Do young people believe that political engagement can make a difference? Do they see a difference between the parties? When those numbers turn more positive, we can see larger numbers of people turning out. That's what we saw. It's a similar effect to what we saw in 2020. And currently, it could change, but currently, as we get closer, people are tuning in. And right now, just about as many young people say they will vote in 24 as voted in 20. And we know that was record turnout.
And Democrats are calling for another record, hoping that they'll turn out for the president. Director of Polling at the Institute of Politics at Harvard University, John Della Volpe. John, thanks so much as always for bringing these numbers. So fascinating. And Eddie, the overall head-to-head spread among these young voters, 18 to 29, almost 20 points in favor of Joe Biden. But when you kind of dig down into some of those numbers, they remain skeptical. They remain uncertain of their own futures.
Yeah, and I think that skepticism and that uncertainty is a kind of generalized sensibility. Right? It's the context in which they came of age, right? But I think the key point is what we just talked about, turnout. Remember, it's those young folk that made Wisconsin possible in 2022. Yeah. So we got to make sure that they get out in large numbers if we're going to save democracy in this election.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.